Hello, Internet user. My name is Gary of Gary's Wares. I make wooden pipes out of exotic hardwoods. I ordered a bandsaw and it should be here today, any minute now. But I've got some things to do before it gets here. So let's get to that. The Internet tells me that the base of this thing is these dimensions. So I cut it out, and that's going to help me determine where it's going to go on my desk. This is a drill press for a rotary tool, and it's pretty good if you're just starting off, but I've got one of these. And I never use the thing. The only thing I use it for is to put my phone on, and I guess I can afford to do without that. So I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to remove all this stuff and everything like that. Here's the old bit rack, and I don't ever use those Forstner bits I had in there, and I don't use these bits, so that can go. I think I might salvage this, and I'll definitely salvage these, but this paint has got to go. Oh God, do I ever hate that color. Of course, I can't really do anything with it until I get a bandsaw, which is what this is all about in the first place. One thing I'm going to do is make a hole for my e-juice, because I use it just as much as a pencil, might as well, right? So it's going to go in this sort of area, but I won't know until he gets here. It's still not here. Oh, where's my bandsaw? I want my bandsaw. Bandsaw. Oh yeah. Here's all the stuff it comes with. 2 hex keys, 4 feet, a wrench, a miter gauge, a fence, and the saw table. This is the D-nut, and it was just floating around, so watch out for this if you get one. Now, a bandsaw itself requires a lot of adjustment before it's operating properly, but one thing they don't cover in the manual is calibrating the miter gauge. I checked mine with the tri-square, and it was inaccurate out of the box. So what you do is you take a square and you put it up against it like this, and then you adjust it, lock it down, and then adjust the arrow for 90. If you don't do this, you're going to have cuts that are slightly off, and you don't want that. One more thing, the saw table is aluminum, but the case is ferrous, so if you want to add a little light, you can do that. Now to put it all together. It has been assembled and mounted, and I like it a lot. As I said before, the cutting table is aluminum, the case is ferrous, the saw wheels are aluminum, and there's a brush here to catch sawdust. As with their drill press, they don't give you anywhere to put the tools that you need to adjust it, so I took a couple magnets and put it right there, and that's where I keep it, inside the upper wheelhouse. Wheelhouse? In any case, before turning it on, you want to make sure that you follow the manual and do all the stuff that it says, particularly about the guide bearings. I won't bore you with that. What I know about bandsaws I got from this video from Craftsy.com. I'll put it in the description. But it runs pretty quietly. And I like it. I've got an idea for a jig, but before I make that, I'm going to make some sawdust. Well, it can definitely make some sawdust. I hooked my shop vac up to the dust port in the back, and I think I'm really going to make use of that. For whatever reason, I thought it wouldn't fit, but it does. But it can make more than just sawdust. Here's some of the things I made just screwing around. I inadvertently made a pipe stand. That's all good and well, but let's see how it does milling actual stock. I've got an order for about 20 pill bottle pipes, so let's see how it handles this. Well, that wasn't just easy, that was fun. When I set up the fence, I didn't account for drift, so the sides aren't necessarily square, but they are parallel to each other, and so they're kind of square. A quick and dirty way to check for squareness is to stack the pieces. Yeah, these are pretty good, I think. Aha! Huh? Yeah, it's going to save me a lot of time. I used to cut stuff out on the scroll saw, and man, getting a square piece on a scroll saw is terrible. I mean, it took a whole lot of concentration, just please go straight. But on this, oh man, it's too easy. So next I'm going to make a jig to cut out these pieces because I use these all the time. What this jig is going to do is I'm going to attach it to the miter gauge, and it's going to be just the right distance to cut out these pieces. I'm going to make it with a half lap joint here, and it's going to come out and it's going to have a stop in the back. The reason that I have the stop in is so that it doesn't cut all the way through the jig, ruining it. If I was only making a few of these cuts, I would cut out the right size piece of wood to go here and clamp it there. Then it would stop the gauge and it wouldn't cut through the wood that I'm trying to push it through. But I make these all the time, so it's worth putting in the work to save me that bit of trouble. My original plan was to make this 1 inch wide, but since I'm dealing with 2x4s, I'm going to make it 1.5 inches. By the way, 2x4s aren't 2x4s, they're 1.5s by 3.5s. The cut I'm going to make has a curve in it, so before I do this, I'm going to take this grindstone and I'm going to round over the back end of the blade. Yeah, that's much better. What that does is it rounds over the back side and it makes cutting curves a little bit easier. The blade doesn't bind it while you're cutting. So now to cut. That came out okay. That joint isn't super awesome, but you know, I'm pretty new to joinery. I cut this to the length I planned on, but as it turns out, it's not the right size. It needs to be about 3 inches to work the way that I want it to. I wanted there to be like a peg, but that's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 3/4 inch piece right here with an 1.5 inch lap joint on the bottom, and that'll act as a stop, and it'll be a little sturdier as well. I marked where it's going to connect with the miter gauge, and I'm going to drill a 1/4 inch hole right there and put a 1/4 inch dowel. Initially I thought I'd use screws, but there's not enough stock there for it to work. And pegs are going to be better anyway. It doesn't need to be screwed to the miter gauge. It can just drop in. So off I go. There it is, completed, and that came out pretty well. Look at that. Yeah, boy! At the last minute, I changed this to 7/8, and it only barely makes a cut into the wood, which is good because I didn't want it to cut too far in there and possibly bind, that sort of thing. The way that it works is I put it in the miter gauge like this, and I line up the fence and set it, and that's exactly where I want it to be. You see this piece of Bacote and how hard it would be to draw on it and then mill from that? Well, this jig makes that a little easier. That works all right, but I think I'm going to shave this part off. That way it pushes all the way through the stock and cuts it through completely. And it does cut into this a little bit. I'm also going to drill a 1/4 inch hole through some wood and put it on here, because when you put it on the miter gauge, it tends to do that. And so I think putting it like that will prevent it from doing it. It doesn't stop this from working the way I wanted it to. It's just sort of annoying. But I'm not going to show you that because not having a desk is driving me crazy. I had some other ideas for some things to make on this, but I just can't take this, so I'm going to cut this stuff out and put it where it needs to go. Everything's been cut out, and it's been put where I want it. If you're going to do your desk like this, I'd suggest using screws and not glue. That way, if you want to change it in the future, because one day you get a new tool, you can do that. Well, this is much better. I've got all this free space to put random crap, and that's good. Turns out the measurements I got from the internet weren't even right to begin with. It's actually 19 by 13.5, but what that is product dimensions. So if you look at the bandsaw from the top, that's what it is. But the actual base is 14 3/4 by 8. And I also stepped on this a couple times. I like this bandsaw a lot, but I don't really have much experience with bandsaws. I've been using a scroll saw like a bandsaw for years like an idiot. And so this is obviously going to be better for me. But I don't see any problems with it. It's a solid piece. I was going to make like an ashtray and some other stuff, but I seriously have work to do. I've got to turn all these into these, and these are pill bottle pipes, and they fit inside a pill bottle. And this is what I do. I make wooden pipes, etc. If you like what you seen, check me out on Facebook and Instagram. My name is Gary, and I'm out.